So the contracts just have to work. He has to be in it. But I was really impressed how he defended LeBron this year in the playoffs. He didn't back down. He was in his face, and that just impressed me. And I like his work ethic, and I like his shooting. But if you're obviously getting the best player in this deal in Aaron Gordon and a good fit. So go ahead. And if you're in a Magic, of course, yeah, you do it because you're getting some bonus. Like Danny was saying, he's only worth like $3 million. And his contract will be restricted, and you're moving up in the draft with a pick, which is always good.
Yeah, and I could have thrown in Thaddeus Young instead of Bogdanovich, but I think in order to make this trade work, I think the Pacers would have to throw in a player like Bogdanovich instead of Thaddeus Young, just because he is younger and he's more of a modern-day NBA player than Thaddeus Young is. Now, moving on to the Milwaukee Bucks, what's the over-under for them?
The Milwaukee Bucks over-under is 46.5 compared to their last year's record, which was 44 and 38. 46.5 is a little bit more. The Milwaukee Bucks did add a new coach, which everyone right here on podcast say that they were a worst team for the past few years with Jason Kidd, and they had interim from last year. They did add Mike Budenholzer from the Atlanta Hawks, who obviously comes from the Spurs tree, so I'm going to say he's right away a really good coach. He's going to be able to find, hopefully use Giannis in the right way. I do expect Giannis to really improve a little bit, take his game a step further. Hopefully he's been working on his shot, because if he's been working on his shot, he's going to become really deadly. I guess if I'm betting, I do think that Vegas has them set pretty well at where they're going to be. I would bet the over just because I do think they're going to be able closer to 48 and 49 wins.
Yeah, I have them set at 48 wins. I could really see a few of these players overperforming a little bit this year around Antetokounmpo. And another thing I could see the Bucks doing this year is trying really hard at the deadline to make a trade for another young, solid player who could really help them out essentially in the future as well as the present. And not to mention the fact here that Brogdon, Bledsoe, and Middleton are all free agents coming up this year. And Milwaukee Bucks already have a pretty high salary cap in 2019. They have obviously Antetokounmpo's contract, but then they also have other players like John Henson, Dellavedova, and Tony Snell, who are all on pretty high contracts right now, unfortunately for at least 2 more years, and Tony Snell on 3 more years. So now you kind of have to make a choice. Middleton's going to demand anywhere between 20 and 25 million a year, and you have to keep him. Bledsoe would probably be the odd man out in this situation because he's going to be another player who might demand a little more than he's worth. And with so many teams having money next year, he might get that from a team that's pretty desperate.
Yeah, I mean, it's also like, do we know if Middleton's going to stay? I mean, Middleton might not want to stay because that there might be better opportunities in the West. Some of those teams that have some salary cap space might strike out, and they might overpay for Chris Middleton. And maybe not even overpay. He's shown he is a consistently good shooter, and he can play defense, and he's only about 27, so he can be a good fit for a team that might strike out on one of the major players.
The Bucks aren't letting him walk. The Bucks will offer him any money he wants. If a team is willing to overpay, Milwaukee will be willing to overpay.
Yeah, but they might not have a choice. He's not restricted.
You're right, but I don't see him wanting to leave that situation there. I mean, he is playing probably around. I think Giannis Antetokounmpo in 3 years will be the best player in the league, and it's hard to want to leave that type of situation. I mean, even though, like you said, I mean they don't have much else around that team in terms of the future. I mean, Thon Maker's not working out to be what they want him to be. They have DJ Wilson, who they selected last year. They barely played him. He was a 17th pick, I believe. Sterling Brown, Dante DiVincenzo, but none of these players have proven anything. And Brogdon is pretty restricted in what he could do. I don't think he's going to grow a lot. He's a solid player, and he did win Rookie of the Year last year, correct?
Yeah. I mean, there was no one else really.
I don't see him growing a lot because of the fact that he's much older than most of the rookies were last year. So I think Milwaukee will do anything to keep him, even if they have to outpay a team by $2-3 million. I think they're going to do literally whatever it takes because losing him guarantees essentially losing Antetokounmpo when he becomes a free agent because
we'll
they
see.
just lost Parker.
I'm just saying that maybe that's not a situation where he wants to stay because eventually there's also a chance that they won't keep Antetokounmpo, especially since what you talked about, there's not really a lot of pieces around to build around. So for the breakout player, I was looking at the roster and my gut feeling is, well, the player who I believe is going to improve the most would be Giannis. But obviously that'd be a cop-out because, he's already been an all-star. He's already, one of the unicorns in the league. So I'm not going to go with Giannis. I'm going to go with the rookie Dante DiVincenzo just because, he had an awesome game in the national championship game in college. He showed he can score. He shows he plays hard. He's defense. He's a great shooter, or at least he can be a great shooter at times when he's hot. So I think he'll fit the team well. He's coming off the bench. Again, I'm not saying he's going to be a breakout all-star. I'm not even saying he's a breakout starter, but he's going to be a good player off the bench. And again, this team doesn't have much breakout potential from what I've seen.
I'm riding the Thon Maker train. I think he will
should learn
finally
how to say his name, and it's Thon Maker.
Okay, fine, Thon Maker. I am riding his train then. I am still a fan. I think he's got a lot of defensive potential. Probably not as much offensive potential as the Bucks had hoped when they drafted him. I think they definitely reached when they did draft him anyway. But yeah, I think he should become a solid defensive player in the NBA. The question is whether he will, apparently. I mean, he's got all the length in the world, and I don't know how much. I think the one thing maybe holding him back might be his desire. Like he sometimes looks a little lazy on the court, and a little excessive in how he celebrates his blocks sometimes. But regardless, I hope he finally breaks out for Milwaukee and becomes at least a starting center for them and a good defensive player.
I have absolutely no hope that will
happen. So for this trade, I have a 4-way trade here. I have the Bucks picking up. Bucks, let me start out with saying who the Bucks trade away here. They're trading away Eric Bledsoe, Malcolm Brogdon, and DJ Wilson, who was their 17th pick last season and barely played this season. And the Nuggets 2019 second-round pick, which they have the rights to. And I have them receiving Terry Rozier, Kent Bazemore, and Dwayne Dedmon. Real quick, how do you think Kent Bazemore is essentially a very solid wing who could play some defense for them. Dwayne Dedmon could play some defense and stretch the floor a little bit alongside Brook Lopez because Henson and Maker don't do that, or Maker don't do that. And so don't want to really touch on them, but how do you think Rozier would fit in Milwaukee with Brogdon and Bledsoe not there?
I mean, Rozier's the type of point guard they would need just because, he can score, he can run an offense quite well, and he's got playoff experience, and he shows that he can, at least he's not afraid of the big lights. So I think Terry Rozier would fit well. I'm a fan of Dwayne Dedmon, his defensive abilities, and his, he shows that he wants to improve in the game by working on the shot and different things. And, Kent Bazemore would probably be like just a wing there coming off the bench from if this trade was made. This trade, you are giving up a lot, but I don't foresee Eric Bledsoe staying. Obviously, they do keep the rights of Malcolm Brogdon, so it'd be hard to see him go. But for the players you're getting back, which are probably going to be better fits on the team, you're probably if you're Milwaukee, you do this trade just because you improve as a team. You
have to make this trade. This is the type of trade Milwaukee has to make this season, in my opinion. Get a player like Terry Rozier, who has a lot of breakout potential. Obviously, he's being held back in Boston through no fault of their own, but he's being held back in Austin. But when given the opportunity to start as a 23, 24-year-old in the playoffs, he proved a lot. And coming to a team like Milwaukee and being able to be a starter would probably benefit him in a lot of ways. And I think Milwaukee needs to make this type of trade for a player who's still young and has the star potential. Maybe not superstar potential, but all-star potential, which Terry Rozier has. Okay, so moving on to the Detroit Pistons. I have them trading away Reggie Jackson, Stanley Jackson, and their own 2019 second-round pick, and receiving Eric Bledsoe. Basically here they're upgrading themselves at the point guard position. They're trading away Reggie Jackson, a fringe solid starter right now in the league based off his health. Stanley Jackson, who, like we discussed earlier, both of us don't. Stanley Johnson, yeah, my bad. Who, like we both said, we both don't think he'll have any offensive potential in the league. Will be probably a 15 to 20 minute contributor based solely off his defense during the peak of his career, and a second round pick, which probably should be somewhere between 38 and 44. How do you feel about the Pistons receiving Eric Bledsoe?
The Hawks would do this trade just because they're getting a few players, a few.
You mean the Pistons?
Oh, but you said
I have the Pistons receiving Eric Bledsoe. Yeah.
Yeah, Pistons would take Eric Bledsoe just because he is an upgrade over Reggie Jackson. He's shown he's a better defensive player, and he's more of a team player than Reggie Jackson. And again, the Pistons are in win now mode, so you make this trade, and you are receiving Stanley Johnson, you're losing Stanley Johnson, so you're losing players that you don't necessarily need. You're getting the best player in the deal, and it's going to make you a better team.
Yeah. All right, so the other two teams we had, if you guys haven't been able to work with us and figure it out, I have the Hawks trading away Kent Bazemore, Dwayne Dedman, and the Bobcats 2019 second-round pick, and receiving back Reggie Jackson, so essentially swapping contracts here between Bazemore and Jackson. And then I have them also receiving Stanley Johnson, DJ Wilson, who, like I said, was the 17th pick for the Milwaukee Bucks last year, barely played, so a solid prospect. And the Nuggets 2019 second-round pick, so I have them moving down a little bit, predictably, because the Bobcats should be a little worse than the Nuggets, so I have them essentially moving down maybe 5 to 10 picks. Just because of the fact that they are getting back DJ Wilson, who is a former first-round pick, only a year removed, and Stanley Johnson, who maybe if provided with an opportunity here in Atlanta, could show something. And essentially, he's probably there for at least 2 years, because I could see Stanley Johnson easily accepting his qualifying offer in 2019 to become a unrestricted free agent in 2020. So I believe you'd have him for 2 years to let him develop there. And you get Reggie Jackson, who's a solid point guard who could back up Trae Young and show him a thing or two. Essentially, him replacing Kent Bazemore. Kent Bazemore probably be a little bit of a better player, but not by much. And then finally, I have the Celtics trading away Terry Rozier and receiving Malcolm Brogdon, the Hornets 2019 second-round pick, and the Pistons 2019 second-round pick. Both should be anywhere between 35th and 45th. Now, the reasoning behind why Celtics might make this trade is for the fact, yes, Rozier and Brogdon are both restricted free agents next year. So they could match any offer that a team offers these players. If Rozier plays the way he did this year for the Celtics, there will be a team out there willing to pay him anywhere between $15 and $20 million to start for them. The Boston Celtics are already over the luxury tax. I believe they're actually close to the luxury tax this year. They might be a little over it, I'm not sure, but adding on Rozier for 4 years at anywhere between 60 and 80 million, not taking into effect that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown will be in that same boat in a couple of years, I don't think the Celtics would be able to match that and really make it work. Now, with a player like Brogdon, who, like we stated, he's a solid player. He does a lot on the court, nothing great, but a lot of things good on the court. He'll be a player who probably receives more in the $8 to $10 million range. And for a backup point guard / shooting guard, that could be something the Celtics match, to have him there alongside Marcus Smart coming off the bench. That's something that's much more feasible and doable. That's why the Celtics make this trade, in addition to the fact that they're adding on 2 second-round picks that they could either use in a bigger trade package or to select 2 young players anywhere between the 35th and 45th pick.
I agree. Kyrie Irving's also going to probably opt out of his contract next year, so he's going to ask for more money. And, the Celtics are going to have to pay him if they want to keep being one of the best teams in the league, and as well as they should. And then Malcolm Brogdon's also probably a better fit than the Scary Terry, just because, Terry Rozier is more of a shooter. He's going to demand the ball more. And the Boston Celtics have plenty of scorers. They're already going to have to figure out how to, add Gordon Hayward and a healthy Kyrie Irving into this very talented team. So Terry Rozier having that ball could only hurt them. Malcolm Brogdon doesn't need to score as much. He's more of a team player. He's a little bit better defensively. And you make the trade also for the salary cap reasons. I think if you're Atlanta, you get